crisis is a turning point in an individual's life that produces an overwhelming emotional response. So this comes about when a person is exposed to a stressor, causing them to experience anxiety. They try to cope in a customary fashion. So most of us, when we get that stressor, we try to cope with how we're used to coping with it. Talking to people, eating chocolate, whatever usually helps us. So the anxiety increases when those coping skills are starting to become ineffective. So if it's not working, we're going to need something different. So we want to make all possible efforts to deal with the stress and trying new methods of coping. But when the coping attempts fail, that's when the person experiences disequilibrium and significant distress. So this is where they start having problems. Now, here are some levels of crisis. You do not have to memorize these. I think Mrs. Music went over the general adaptation syndrome. We should go over that with her anxiety and that lecture. I think she should have, right? Yeah. Okay, I thought so. So just know that there's different levels that they do depend on how they cope with the crisis. So you do not have to have those memorized. So when you live with the mental health condition, your brain and body often send you a message, it feels like you're in a crisis situation. You may get in trouble with the law, injure yourself, take your own life. So NAMI talked last week about how they help with people and what they do. Well, I'm thinking of that. When you guys do your evals at the end, your course evals, I think it says something about speakers or something. NAMI keeps track of their evals they get, so if you want to put just a little comment in there, and then I can send to them, helps them get their funding, I think, by showing that they're reaching out. So if you guys think about that when you do your evals at the end. Okay, so some different crises. The first one, this is predictable events in the course of life. So marriage, a birth, retirement. So not all crises are bad, right? So these are some good things. It's still a crisis, something's happening, something's changing. So when you're in the middle of it, you may feel very much in crisis, but these are usually good. Okay? Situational. Unanticipated or sudden events that threaten your integrity. So divorce, your funeral, you've been fired, things that are completely out of the norm, you're not expecting it, or it's starting to happen, and it's starting to really get there. So that's situation. Adventitious crisis. We see 9/11. I know most of you was little, or some not born yet in 9/11. Rape, murder, missing kids. When I was in New York, was it 3 years ago, and seeing the memorial, they're still identifying body parts. So this is still a crisis for the family. They still haven't received something of their loved one, so they're still going through this crisis. But you see the rape, the missing kids, the murder. School shootings. Did you notice since COVID started, how many school shootings have you heard of? Anybody? Summer, have you heard of any? No, so isn't that strange? All of a sudden they're gone, or not as known. But we talk about this. You had to do your ALICE your training at the beginning, for usually the firearms come from their home of whoever's doing it. 50% gives some warning signal. We have things we have to do at the college, if we hear of somebody there, this or that. But you can look all this up on the Center for Disease Control and Prevention about the different school shootings, the statistics on it. But I thought it was something that we're not hearing it now since all this COVID Probably at first is because there was nobody in school for the most part, and now it's, I don't know. You would think it away and make it worse. Okay, so just some mass disasters we wanted to touch base on. Aircraft crashes. There's two things a college has to worry about with disasters. The one is tornado, and the other one is we're right in line with Mansfield Lama Airport. So I'm the other way. I'm right beside the airport the other way. So we're right in line. So that could happen. Train derailments, refinery, natural disasters, and shooting. So what we're going to talk about with these, normal reactions for people in it, for you helping, intense, unpredictable feelings. You may have trouble concentrating, making decisions, disrupted eating and sleeping patterns. They will get upset, emotional upsets on anniversary and dates. I mean, we do that with our loved ones that have died, right? It doesn't have to be that they was in this disaster. We still will do that. Strain personal relationships and physical symptoms, like headaches, nausea, or chest pain. And I'll put this PowerPoint on again today after we're done. One thing we don't see much about here is hurricanes and floods. We have had flooding in our area. Traumatic stress, good practice to talk with the kids. Allow them opportunity to mourn losses. Whoops, go back there. I got a cell phone call. They're frightened and bewildered. If you remember the Florence hurricane, there was 43 deaths from that one. That's been a few years ago. Wildfires, we don't have this, but you'll hear this. I mean, if you do travel nursing, you may come into contact with some of these. Again, maintain sense of perspective, acknowledge the feelings that they're having. Disaster fatigue occurs when prolonged exposure to news coverage. Compassion fatigue, emotional and physical exhaustion, leading to diminished ability to empathize or feel compassion. So this is our COVID, right? You're seeing the nurses when you're on the floors, what they're going through. It's not, I won't say as bad as last year, but they have more masks. They know what to do this time around. Last year, I think they was just pushed right into it. It was just terrible. So this year, I think they're a little bit more ready for it and do know, we're seeing the differences than we did last year. But that's a big one, is disaster fatigue. Okay, so here's our triage systems. And what is funny is on the floor, Jason and the assistant nurse manager up there was changing out their little hazmat book that told you what you do in tornado, this and that. And I said, where's your triage tag system at? And there is not one in those books. He's like, oh, you're right, it's not there. But this is what they use, so this is what you need to know. We will be going over some of this tomorrow in lab. So red is high priority. So they're hemorrhaging, they have a tension pneumothorax. We want to get them there right away. Yellow, medium, they've got a femur fracture, something broken, but they're not as, trauma, it's not as quick that we need to fix it. They can wait, okay? Green, they walked in, they've got abrasion, contusion, sprain, so, they're okay, they're on the back burner. Black is for those that are dead or they have minimal chance. So if somebody comes in, massive head injuries, there's just no way they're going to make it. Unfortunately, they're going to be put to the side. When there's something going on, big triage, or they're 95% coverage, third-degree burns, you have to take who you can help first. Sad thing to think of, and most hospitals have these drills once a year. So how else still having it? Has anybody been in one lately, or used to? Anybody that works there? Hello. How about Avita? Do they even have them? I have no idea.
I don't know, but I'm not there that much, so I don't.
Okay. Right.
And I'm at different locations.
I know we used to, and I know Richland County used to do the thing around prom. Do you guys any of you remember that at the fairgrounds where they had like the crash? And
Yeah, the mock crash. We had one at our career center too.
Okay. So, that was good. They brought all that together and did this with it. And the hospital used to, one time it was a train overturned on 39, had hazardous waste, all this stuff with it. And we was getting all these victims. So we had to, I got sent to command center, which is down by the morgue in Ohio Health. So it just depends where they want you and where they can use you. But usually they're going to have these drills at least once a year. So I have to check about that. So this is your triage system. Like I said, I'll put this PowerPoint on. Okay, she talked about suicide over 48,000. Myth or fact? People who commit suicide are mentally ill. Mallory, what do you think?
Myth.
It is a myth. A lot of them will be, but most of them to actually do the committing, not dying, the committing, is usually in their, I don't want to say right mind, but they understand what they're going through at the time. Good circumstances prevent suicide. Summer? Myth or fact?
Myth.
Right. Because you'll get the high class people that will do it just as much as the homeless ones. So that has nothing to do with that. People who talk about suicide won't commit suicide. Amber?
False.
Right. It's a myth. So that does not mean anything. She talked about this one, talking about suicide put the idea in someone's head. How about people who are deeply depressed don't have the energy to commit suicide? Jessica?
Myth.
It's a myth, but it also can go the other way, because I've always read and learned about it is as they're coming out of that depression, they're not really in deep, then they start getting the energy to plan and to do it. So it can be either way, I guess, on that. And then she talked, sometimes they do have warning signs, sometimes not. Okay. We just pulled that a little bit. Concepts of suicide. So suicide itself is the act of intentionally ending one's own life and opting for non-existence. Intentionally ending one's own life and opting for non-existence. Okay. Suicide attempt includes all willful, self-inflicted, life-threatening attempts that have not led to death. So these are just attempts. Willful, self-inflicted, life-threatening. Suicide ideation is their thinking about suicide. Physician-assisted suicide. There are 5 states right now it is legal in. Oregon, Vermont, Washington, California, and it can be in Montana with court decision. So these individuals must have a terminal illness as well as prognosis of 6 months or less. Doctors cannot be prosecuted for prescribing medications to hasten death. Okay, so me and Lisa are taking these classes now. And I have to, stop sharing. So one of my things I have to do is I'm going to split you in 2 groups. I'm